Part 1. The Question That Never Lands. Marriage isn't just a word. It's a container, a shared agreement that says, I choose you, not just for now, but for what we are building together. When two people live under one roof, raise kids side by side, and share daily life, it's natural for the conversation to turn towards commitment, towards future, toward forever. But every time I brought it up, it was like tossing a stone into a well and hearing no sound come back. No yes, no, just, I don't know. I can't count how many times I heard those words. They weren't cruel, they weren't angry, but they were empty. And in a way, that's worse. Because when someone says no, at least you have clarity. And when they say yes, you have direction. But I don't know traps you in the middle, hopeful, but slowly unraveling. The door that never opens. It started subtly. I wasn't even asking for a wedding date or a ring. I was asking for a real conversation, a shared vision, something that said, we're in this. We're building something. I remember the first time I brought it up seriously. We were sitting outside. The air was calm, and I thought, this is the moment. I turned to her and said, do you ever think about us getting married? She blinked, looked down, then quietly said, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Fair enough, I thought. People move at different speeds. I didn't press. I gave her space. But weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. And every time the question resurfaced, sometimes gently, sometimes indirectly, I got the same response. I don't know. The weight of vague. There's a weight that comes with ambiguity, especially when you've poured your life into a relationship. I wasn't asking for perfection. I wasn't rushing her down the aisle. I was simply trying to confirm that what I was investing in emotionally, spiritually, and practically wasn't temporary. But the more I asked, the more she retreated. Not dramatically, not with a scene, just a subtle shifting. Eyes averting, body language closing, the vibe in the room changing. It got to the point where I stopped bringing it up, because I could feel the tension before the words even left my mouth. But the silence doesn't erase the question. It just buries it alive. I don't know is still a decision. Let me say this as clearly as I can. Indecision is not neutrality. It's a delay tactic, and it always favors the one who's afraid to commit. When a woman says, I don't know, again and again, what she's really saying is, I'm not willing to choose you yet, but I don't want to lose what you provide. It keeps her in control while keeping you in limbo. It lets her benefit from the relationship while denying the future. And it turns love into a waiting room where you can never leave. I've stood in that room long enough to know the pattern. I offer security. I bring stability. I do the work. I show up with vision, heart, and long-term thinking. And in return, I'm told to wait. Be patient, not to pressure. But how long can a man wait to be chosen before he starts to lose his place in the story? Spiritual vision meets emotional deflection. In my Christ-conscious path, marriage isn't just a contract. It's a sacred container for evolution. It's where the masculine and feminine energies are meant to rise, reflect, and refine each other. It's where two become one, not in disappearance, but in divine cooperation. But what happens when one half of the equation refuses to step in? You can't create sacred union without someone who won't even meet you in clarity. And when love becomes a guessing game, it's no longer sacred. It's exhausting. I remember praying, God, if this is my partner, why does she always avoid the conversation that defines partnership? And the answer that came back wasn't easy to hear. You've committed to someone who hasn't committed to herself, let alone you. That truth rocked me because I had built so much around this. I had poured so much into it. I had waited so long. But you can't build forever with someone who won't even speak its name. Part 2. Fear in the form of indecision. There's a difference between needing time and refusing clarity. One comes with communication, the other comes with silence. I was never in a rush to force a timeline. I wasn't asking her to marry me tomorrow. I wasn't asking her to talk what we were even doing, to acknowledge the direction, to lean into the possibility. But instead of openness, I was met with discomfort, walls, deflection, and always, I don't know. Indecision isn't harmless. Some people treat indecision like it's a safe middle ground. As long as you're not saying no, you're not causing harm. But I've learned over and over again that indecision is not neutral. It's a slow form of emotional withholding. It's a way to reap the benefits of closeness without risking vulnerability. It keeps one foot in and one foot out, and it puts the other person in limbo. Because while she's busy saying, I don't know, I'm over here showing up like I do. I commit, I invest, I stay faithful, I build towards the future. And that gap, the space between her fear and my forward motion, creates a slow emotional bleed. Not because I need a wedding, because I need to know that what I'm giving myself to isn't temporary, that I'm not wasting years on a version of maybe that never becomes yes. Power imbalance disguised as uncertainty. What people don't talk about enough is how indecision shifts power in a relationship. The one who says, I don't know, holds control. They get to decide when to talk about it, when to shut the door, when to look away. And they know, deep down, the other person is too committed to leave. So they stall, they avoid, they delay. Not necessarily because they're manipulative, but because it keeps them safe. Because if they answer directly, they have to be accountable. And for some people, fear of commitment isn't about the other person. It's about their own unwillingness to be responsible for what they create. Spiritual honesty versus emotional evasion. From my Christ-conscious path, I've learned that the masculine, while aligned, is rooted in truth, clarity, direction, foundation. The feminine and her sacred essence flows with intuition and nurtures trust. But when the feminine is wounded, she hides. She doubts. She pulls back. She says, I don't know, even when she feels the truth deep in her gut. I began to see that I was walking in spiritual honesty, offering transparency, commitment, structure, and she was walking in emotional evasion. I wasn't trying to pressure her. I was inviting her to build, to align, to grow. But the invitation kept getting declined without being acknowledged. And over time, even the strongest man starts to feel his love is being wasted. Because when you reach for someone over and over and they never fully reach back, you stop believing they ever will. Part 3. What it feels like to be deferred. There's a unique kind of heartbreak that doesn't come from betrayal, lies, or infidelity. It comes from being put on hold, postponed, deferred. When someone tells you, "I don't know," enough times, it starts to shape the way you move. You begin living your life in pause mode, present, loyal, dependable, and somehow still unchosen. And the most frustrating part is, you can't point to a single moment where it all fell apart. Because it didn't. It just never came together. You start living in a waiting room. Emotionally, it feels like sitting in a chair outside of a locked door. The room has everything you'd hope for: commitment, stability, shared vision. But the person with the key just keeps telling you, "Not yet." And you wait. You distract yourself. You stay busy. You pour more into the relationship, hoping maybe, just maybe, she'll see how much you care. You tell yourself things like, maybe she's healing. Maybe she's just afraid. Maybe she needs more time. But one day you wake up and realize, it's been years, and the door is still closed, and no one is standing on the other side unlocking it. You're not being loved. You're being tolerated. And the longer you stay in that waiting room, the more you start to disappear. The hidden resentment of being good enough, but not chosen. Here's what no one tells you about being deferred. It builds resentment. Not the loud kind, not the kind that screams or slams doors, but the quiet, internal kind that eats away at your self-respect. Because deep down, you're being told, "I want you in my life, but not fully. I want what you have to offer, but not in the depth of you. I like having you around, but I'm not ready to stand beside you." It's rejection hidden in polite words. It's being almost enough, and almost enough is still not enough. It starts to color how you see yourself. You wonder what more you could do. You wonder if she ever actually wanted you. You wonder why you're the only one showing up fully. And maybe worst of all, you start to resent your own heart because it keeps hoping, it keeps loving. And maybe worst of all, you start to resent your own heart because it keeps hoping, keeps loving, keeps waiting for someone who's only half in. Living half loved is still starvation. You don't have to be cursed out, cheated on, or abandoned to feel broken. Sometimes just being postponed again and again does the job. I was waking up next to someone who shared my bed but wouldn't share a future. And that gap between proximity and partnership was tearing me in two. We had built a life, shared a home, raised children. But when it came to committing in name and vision and action, I was the only one willing to say, "Let's do this fully." That's the part people don't see. The part where a man can give his all and still be told, through silence and avoidance, "You're not it for me. Not yet. Maybe not ever." And the truth is, no man can thrive in a space where he's almost loved. No matter how patient he is, no matter how spiritual he becomes, no matter how deeply he believes in sacred union. Almost love is still hunger. Part 4. The masculine need for direction. The masculine, when it's healthy and aligned, it thrives on clarity. It moves with purpose. It commits. It builds. It creates. It creates containers for growth, whether that's in a business, a home, a relationship, or a vision. It's not about domination. It's not about control. It's about leadership rooted in truth. And here's what I've learned the hard way. The masculine cannot function in emotional fog. We need to know where we stand, not because we're insecure, but because we're builders. And you can't build anything on a real foundation that keeps shifting under your feet. Living in fog, leading without a map, being told I don't know over and over again is like being handed blueprints with no permission to build. It's like saying, here's the land, here's the materials, but don't start yet. Just wait. And so you stand there, holding everything, ready to create something beautiful, but you can't move because she won't say yes, and she won't say no. She just leaves you in suspense. And in that fog, a man starts to doubt himself. Not because he doesn't believe in his vision, but because it's hard to keep believing in a shared future when the other person refused to even define it. That's what indecision does. It erodes structure. It denies the masculine innate drive to provide direction and protection. And eventually, it starts to make a man feel unstable in his own strength. The frustration of inhibited motion. You want to move forward, plan, build, lay the next brick, but she wants to see how it goes. She wants to wait a little longer. She wants to keep everything comfortable, controllable, and definite. And suddenly, everything about the relationship starts to feel like walking in place. You're doing the work, you're being present, you're showing loyalty, you're providing what needs to be provided. But without a shared direction, all of that effort feels like spinning your wheels in mud. Because motion without alignment isn't progress, it's burnout. Spiritual masculinity versus relationship paralysis. As a man of faith walking in Christ consciousness, I know the divine masculine is not reactive. It's not explosive. It's not ego-driven. It's rooted. It's steady. It's responsible for direction. But direction requires agreement. It requires the other person to say, yes, I'm with you, let's go. Not, I don't know, I'm not ready, let's wait a while longer. And here's where it breaks your spirit. When the masculine wants to move forward in love, in partnership, and family, and is constantly told to stand still, he begins to question the integrity of his own path. Am I asking too much? Am I leading too soon? Should I just wait in silence and hope she catches up? But that's not leadership. That's emotional captivity. A man in his divine essence doesn't force love, but he also doesn't abandon his direction for someone who's still deciding if he's worthy of walking with. Part 5. The gap between life and legacy. It's one thing to live with someone, it's another to build a legacy with them. And the difference between the two is the difference between surviving and planting seeds for something lasting. Life is routines. Groceries, bills, school pickups, folding the laundry, keeping the fridge stocked, and the lights on. Legacy is vision, shared purpose, the trust that says, we're going somewhere with this, this has roots. And when one person avoids long-term commitment, you're left living in the duties of partnership without security of partnership. You're performing the relationship, but you're not protected by it. How it feels to build without foundation. I've helped raise children under this roof. I've made financial sacrifices, done repairs, added stability. I've talked about future plans, home improvements. long-term ideas, not because I was playing house, but because I believed we were building something sacred. But how can you keep building when the other person won't commit to pouring the foundation? Every day I started to feel like laying bricks on sand. Sure, the walls went up. Sure, the routine continued. But in the back of my mind, I knew this whole thing could collapse at any moment, and I'd be the only one surprised. Because I was the only one invested in permanence. And nothing wrecks a man like knowing he's building something beautiful on land that isn't fully his. The emotional weight of temporary. When someone keeps you in maybe, everything starts to feel conditional. Can I really plan that trip with her if she won't even commit to forever? Can I really make those home improvements if she might walk away any day? Should I even keep sharing my dreams if she's not planning to stay in them? That tension eats at you. You stop dreaming. You stop building. You start living in caution instead of creation. And the most painful part? You start keeping receipts, not in bitterness, in protection. Because part of you knows that if it ends, no one will acknowledge what you gave unless you document it yourself. Legacy requires mutual commitment. As a father, as a man, as someone rooted in divine purpose, legacy matters to me. I don't want to just live. I want to leave something behind. Something my children can grow from. Something my partner can feel safe in. Something rooted in love, but also in decision. Because decision was the only thing she wouldn't give me. I was offering a life of shared vision. She was offering, I don't know. I was offering structure, growth, protection. She was offering conditions. And that's not legacy. That's a lease. A temporary emotional arrangement with no long-term guarantee. And the man that I am now, the man I've become through pain, growth, prayer, discipline, and fire, was not made to live under a lease. Part 6. When patience becomes self-betrayal. At first, patience felt like love. It felt noble, wise, mature. I told myself I was being understanding, that everyone moves at their own pace, that healing takes time, that trust can't be rushed. And all of that's true, but it's only part of the story. Because there's a difference between giving someone time and giving someone your entire timeline while they give you nothing in return. What I thought was patience slowly revealed itself to be self-abandonment in disguise. The dangerous disguise of holding space. You hear a lot these days about holding space in relationships. Being the safe place, being the stable presence, not rushing someone's process. And again, those are beautiful things when they're mutual. But when one person is constantly holding space and the other person is constantly avoiding it, that space becomes a prison. I held space for her doubts, her delays, her I don't know responses, her emotional retreat. But no one was holding space for me. No one was checking in on my needs. No one was asking, how long have you been waiting to be chosen? Because that's the lie of one-sided patience. It teaches you to disappear. Love that waits forever isn't love. It's avoidance. We like to romanticize the idea of a loyal partner who waits years for the other person to be ready. It sounds noble, but really love doesn't require that kind of emotional starvation. Because love that only survives through endless waiting isn't love. It's fear. It's stagnation. It's enabling. It's staying loyal to someone who has already shown you that they will never fully choose you. It's hoping that your consistency will one day awaken their courage. But that's not love. That's desperation dressed up as devotion. And I had to face the hard truth. My patience had turned into a way of avoiding my own heartbreak. Because if I'd stayed patient, if I'd kept being understanding, if I didn't press too hard, then maybe, just maybe, I would have had to face the reality that she didn't want to marry me. Betraying myself quietly every day. Every time I didn't bring it up, every time I swallowed the question, every time I accepted I don't know without follow-up, I was teaching myself to settle, to lower the bar, to make peace with uncertainty. And what started out as love turned into slow self-erasure. I stopped dreaming. I stopped talking about the future. I stopped asking what she wanted, because I already knew the answer. Nothing right now, and maybe nothing ever. And the man I was becoming, the man I knew I was shrinking. Not because I didn't believe in myself, because the person I loved the most had no intention of building with me in return. Part 7. The Quiet Realization. I am already alone in this. There wasn't a big fight. There wasn't a dramatic ending, no bags packed, no screaming match, no one walking out. But the realization came all the same, and it came quietly. It came in a morning conversation where I asked again, "Do you ever see us getting married?" And she said for the 100th time, "I still don't know." But this time, I didn't get upset. I didn't push. I didn't beg. Because something inside me finally whispered, "She's already giving you her answer. She's just too afraid, or just too comfortable, to say it plainly." And in that moment, the fog lifted. Not in anger, but in understanding. I had been waiting for something that was never coming. I had been reaching for someone who was never planning to reach back. I had been building a life with someone who was content to coexist, not commit. When you stop hoping for what you deserve, there's something plainly sacred about the moment when you stop hoping. Because not you've given up on love, because you've finally given up on settling for a love that won't meet you where you are. I wasn't asking for fireworks. I wasn't even asking for a date. I was asking to be chosen, to be named, to be seen as worth standing beside, not just behind closed doors, but in the light. And when that didn't happen, not once, not twice, but again and again, I realized she's not confused. She's comfortable. And comfort is not commitment. The ache of emotional abandonment in plain sight. We think of abandonment as someone walking away, but emotional abandonment happens while they stay. When they stop engaging, stop dreaming, stop answering the question, stop making plans, stop making effort. She was still here, still in the room, still sharing the house, still sharing the routines. But she wasn't in it with me anymore. She hadn't been for a long time. And that realization didn't devastate me. It freed me, because it gave me permission to stop chasing someone who wasn't running towards me. Spiritual clarity, Christ within, clarity without. In my Christ-conscious journey, The goal has never been control. It's been clarity, alignment, truth in love. The Christ within me isn't wounded by rejection. It's illuminated by it. Because truth, even when it hurts, is a gift. And the truth is, I was already alone. Not in the physical, not in the logistical, but in the spiritual, emotional, and intentional sense. I had been walking alone for a long time. She had stopped choosing me. I just hadn't accepted it yet. But now, I do. Part 8. Choosing myself. Choosing truth. At some point, you stop waiting. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally realize you were never supposed to wait this long. Love isn't supposed to be begged for. Clarity isn't supposed to be avoided. And the future isn't supposed to be a punishment for waiting for something real. I had spent years being patient, trying to be understanding, trying to make it work, trying to hold space while she made up her mind. But now I see it for what it is. She wasn't confused. She wasn't healing. She wasn't unsure. She was just simply unwilling to choose me fully. And that is the clearest answer a man can ever get. I am no longer asking to be chosen. I don't need another conversation, another maybe, another I don't know. What I need and what I now demand from life is truth. And the truth is, if someone can share your bed, your meals, your home, your children, your holidays, your routines, your future talk, and still not stand beside you in commitment, then they're not unsure. They've made a choice. They've just never had to say it out loud. So I'll say it for both of us. I am not your option. I am not your placeholder. I am not a halfway thing. I am not waiting anymore. Christ within, crown intact. The Christ within me does not tolerate delay disguised as care. The divine masculine does not stay in spiritual limbo to avoid discomfort. He moves with love, yes, but he also moves with truth. And the truth is, I have a life to live, a mission to complete, children to guide, a legacy to plant. I was never built to beg. I was never designed to chase what refuses to see my value. I was never meant to dull my light to accommodate someone else's hesitation. I do not need permission to be loved fully, and I will not shrink to fit inside anyone's fear. Love doesn't live in delay. From this point forward, I am no longer available to be put on pause. I will no longer explain why I am worthy of commitment. I will no longer stand at the door of a woman who keeps saying she doesn't know. Because I do know. I know my worth. I know my heart. I know what I offer. I know what I build. And I know I cannot build sacred union with someone who doesn't see me clearly. So I choose myself. I choose truth. I choose movement. I choose alignment. I choose peace, even if it means choosing it without her.